Here we go. Hey, everybody out there. Hopefully, people are out there. They're going to be coming soon. Welcome to another episode of my Own Your Expertise interviews. I'm Emily Crookston, owner and decider of all things at the Pocket PhD. I'm the ghostwriter for Rebels, Renegades, and Mavericks, and I love helping experts with big ideas get their ideas out of their heads and into the hands of their fans. If you're watching us live, feel free to pop into the chat, say hi, let us know your comments, whatever you have to say. That's awesome. Today, I'm sitting down with Connie Vanderzanden. Connie is a cash flow and business mentor, another money person. I just did a money person last week too, which is cool. And her company is called Profit With Connie, which I think is really great. She is, according to her website, not your typical numbers person, which I also really appreciate. I love talking to numbers people who aren't your typical numbers people. So thanks, Connie, for being here. I really appreciate it. Tell us a little bit more about who you work with and what you do.
Sure. So I started out, I have 34 years in the accounting business and 19 years in my own business, but realized I didn't like numbers.
And did you realize that in year like 19 or
17? But what I've always really liked and what I started my business on was that one-on-one working with business owners, having that conversation with them. And so I decided at 52 that I didn't have to do what I didn't like anymore and go back and really focus on that piece of it. So I do cash flow and business mentoring, which means I help clients and business owners understand their numbers, create their financial plan, AKA the budget, and create a cash handling system which slows the process down so that they can, celebrate their money and intentionally use their money rather than when we're like in startup or in hustle mode, money usually is going out faster than it stays in the business. And so it's I usually work with businesses that are in years 7 and up. They've really figured out how to do business, but they're ready to grow in some fashion. They have no idea how money's going to support that. So that's where I work with them.
Oh, very interesting. That's a very clear, you know exactly who you work with, which is awesome. So year 7 and above, is there something special about year 7 that reason you picked that, or just see that's how it usually works out well?
In year 5 to 7, depending on the business, is when they're going to first get there. I'm going to shift. I'm going to grow in this fashion. There's the confidence is built enough that they're ready to do that. And that's what I did in my business. So I have shifted my business design about 4 times now.
Sure. By design, you mean your business model?
Yeah. So when I was first started, I was a solo practitioner at home. This was my home office when I first started out 19 years ago. And then I decided to grow, and that's where my expertise started to show up. And I got commercial space, and I hired a team, and then and then the cash handling system came into play. And so we've just shifted a couple times. We had many websites.
Sure. I know, it's funny how that the shift in the brand means a new website. Right?
Yeah. I think see, when you first get started, your confidence in what you're doing is usually based on what other people in your industry are doing. Yeah. So it's usually a cookie cutter, very similar to everybody else. And then as you start to get more confidence and you figure out who you'd really like to work with, then you start talking to them. And then as you get even more and you develop into your expert in your field, then it starts being more about you and about what your special sauce that you bring to the game. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Great. So let's get into some questions. So
Sure.
How would you describe your path to becoming the expert you've become?
It was a long path. It was a long denial. No, I'm not an expert. Let me push this in the corner. There is nothing special about what I do. And it took a long time. So the first pivot in the business was when I hired a life coach that really helped me. It was my first coach ever. She was a recovering CPA. And it was the first time I had to look at this and go, no, really, how I see numbers, how numbers show up for me in the bookkeeping is a lot different than the other bookkeepers I talk with, the other accounting professionals I talk with. And so that's when it first started to show up, and I tried to still hide it for another 6 to 7 years, and before I finally stepped into it and said, nope, this is what makes me special. This is my expertise, and actually my human design. Actually, I did a human design through a business coach, and it said your purpose is to make numbers easy for people, and then it all kind of, oh, all right. Now I understand. So
yeah, well, it's interesting because I think if you discover that about yourself, that you do something different from what everyone in your industry does or what most professional bookkeepers or accountants do, you could go one of two ways with that discovery. You could say, what's wrong with me? Or you could say, wait, this is really cool. And I am an expert because I do things in this unique way. And that's my differentiator. And I can make myself stand out that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the first time I pivoted in my business, I thought there is nothing special about what I do. I can teach this.
Yeah.
And so then I did try to teach and realized how I see numbers kind of make a picture for me. And I can see the whole health of the business through the numbers. And no matter how I tried to teach it to my team members, they got a pieces of it, but they still couldn't see the whole thing. And that's when I finally realized, oh, not everybody can see the things the same way. So that's why I'm also really particular about when I work with clients, everyone gets their own special way of doing things, because we are all unique individuals, and learning patterns and behaviors and things that we've learned from our past, and how we show up is unique. And so everyone has to have their own special way of doing things.
Yeah, so that goes right into the next question. So how do you specifically translate that expertise for others, given that people have different learning approaches and a unique way of looking at numbers and looking at their own businesses?
Yeah. So I try to incorporate all the different learning avenues. Like I'm working with, I have a small group I'm working with, and we had this conversation last week, and I was like, I can pre-record all these videos for you guys for training and create this library, which was something I had been considering doing. And they're like, we won't watch them. And I'm like, oh, I don't like to go back and watch video.
Right. That's a good idea. Good tip. Yeah.
Yes, you have to really ask those questions. So when I'm working with businesses on picking out an accounting software, I'm like, seriously, if you're going to be in the software and you're going to feel like you're going to throw up, that's not the right software for you, regardless of who's telling you that's the right one. So you really have to ask the questions and get underneath. And I think that's the different one part of the differential between me and a bookkeeper and accountant, because they're going to use what they like. They're going to use what they're comfortable in. And I'm really looking to find what's going to be more comfortable for my client. And so not only in how I deliver the material, but in the tools we use. I have one client who hates Slack. All right, we won't use Slack.
Who hates Slack? But yeah.
Creative, sometimes when I'm working with a really strong creative or an entrepreneur that's very much in that holding space for others, we need to make it a little less noisy for them to show up and actually do their thing, but also lean into the numbers so that they can use it. So that's when we're looking at numbers, sometimes that's even just adding color to a spreadsheet. And color that resonates with them, not with me.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, because I think this is really interesting, because I think I was talking to, like I said, another money person. She's a financial chief financial operator, outsourced, to her for that. But she was, and she made the point that, look, business, when it comes to business finances, it's pretty much the same. Money in, money out, right? I mean, those principles don't really change. But you're bringing up a really good point that how you present that to people can make a difference. And people are unique in the way they understand the numbers of their business. And so I think that shows a really big difference between, somebody you're hiring to do your finances versus someone you're hiring to coach you to understand how your finances work. Right.
Yeah. And the other part about being an expert in my field is I have strong boundaries about where I stop. So there are places where I think they're going to have to hire a chief financial officer. There are spots that I don't try to fill in for the tax preparer. There are other things where I'm like, okay, no, this is my expertise right here. And yes, I could walk with you over here, but I'm going to put you in touch with another expert that can handle that.
Right.
That's the thing.
Yeah, and it's so important as the expert to recognize, here's what I do and here's what I don't do. Yeah, I really appreciate that kind of perspective. Very cool. Ooh, this is a fun question. So if you could go back in time and mentor your 20-year-old past self, what advice would you give to her?
Oh, well, I wrote a really good answer. I think the key thing I've learned, I love my husband. I've been married 34 years. I have to usually do the math to do that. But I got married at 19. That's the key thing. Is I got married at 19. And what I would tell my younger self is go out and have an adventure. Go live by yourself. Go enjoy life. Go explore. There's plenty of time for other things, but go and like really have a really yummy life experience first and then come back and do the other things.
Yes, I like that. I see that as a theme when I ask experts this question. How would you mentor your past self? Yeah,
really?
You get a lot of, give yourself a break, take it easy. You've got a lot of time to do the things that you're worried about doing right now in the moment. And I think that fits with your idea, like, enjoy what you have in the moment, to go on an adventure, learn about yourself, figure out who you are before you settle down maybe, or figure out what you want the rest of your life to look like.
I think this generation now are doing that a little bit more. There is that, but what we get in that cycle of we leave our parents' homes and we've got to make money. And so then we get in the cycle of job to job to job, and we never experience what we really want in life until we're our 20s and 30s, but then life can happen right then. So
yeah.
Fun.
Right. So did you always want to be a financial person? Or did you go to school for bookkeeping, accounting?
I did go to school for bookkeeping. No, but I wanted to be a mom. So I got married at 19. We wanted to have kids, and we had infertility issues, and so life had to pivot.
Yeah,
and I was already doing it, but it was only supposed to be a job to put food on the table and pay bills and temporary. And so where I'm at today, because I really did build this with something I really didn't enjoy, but it was easy. So now I'm really doing something I enjoy every day, getting up and doing it. And it's funny how I got here, and I look back that was part of my expert journey. All of those things, all those roadblocks, I got into a lot of debt in my business when I grew my business, working through that guilt and shame, creating this cash handling system. All of that is really essential to what I do today, because I sit with business owners in my own little glass house. And we actually can talk honestly about what it's like to be a business owner and have those things pop up. So
yeah, I thought it was really interesting. I remember looking at your website, reading about how you said you your business outgrew you in a sense in the beginning, right? And you hired a team because you thought that was the thing to do, that you should do this and you should do that. And then you found yourself not being able to pay yourself. And I think a lot of new business owners can get into that cycle, because you're right. What you said at the very beginning of the interview, you said, when you're starting out, all you can do is compare yourself to other people in your industry, and you just kind of do what they do, because that seems like you don't know what else. And it takes some time to sort of get into the groove for yourself and figure out what's going to work for you. Right. Yeah.
And there are things, I think, also when we realize what's our strengths and what's not our strengths. And then there will be team will play into that and fill those holes for us. But I think it takes more intentional planning of where the costs are. For me, I forgot to include my salary, so my profit margin wasn't there.
Right.
I had so many learning opportunities from that time. But I was really embarrassed about it for a while. I was like, there's no way anybody would hire me to do where I'm doing now based on where I've been. But it took a little couple mindset shifts to recognize, no, that is part of your journey, part of your expertise. And like, oh, okay, now I've made friends with it, because I think that's part of it too, is like our life experience is going to bring us to who we are as an expert. It's going to give us a different viewpoint of what we're going to do.
Yeah, it absolutely colors the way you think about your business, the way you think about other people's business, and that makes perfect sense. I hate to admit to people as a writer that I don't write every day, or I don't outline a lot of the blogs that I write, because people think, oh, you're a writer, this is how you do writing, and or at least in my head, I have in mind that a professional writer does X, Y, and Z. So if I'm not doing it, I'm not good enough, So I could see easily how an accountant would think, if I don't have my numbers perfect, well, how can I help other people? But you're absolutely right. And that's such a good point. I always like to say, expertise is a lot about the process. It's not about like standing on top of the mountain and going, I'm an expert now because I've figured everything out. Right. I'm sure if you even ask, Warren Buffett or someone like that, are you an expert? They'd probably say, well, I still have things to learn,
Oh, yeah. Well, 2020 has proven that we have things to learn. So this is definitely, let me turn that off. Sorry. 2020 has given us this great opportunity to learn all kinds of brand new things and look at different ways to pivot and expand and grow. And I think it's going to be good in the future. Right now, it's really sticky and uncomfortable to be here. But I'm curious to see how it's going to affect generations to come.
Me too. Curious and afraid. But yes, I know that's one thing. I mean, I do think this time has taught us a little bit more about that vulnerability piece. That and you have to. Rolling with the punches. That was something I heard all the time growing up. And like, that's what I feel like is happening in the moment. And we're all trying to figure out how to pivot and make things work. But also, trying very hard not to think about tomorrow, just to think about things are okay right now. Let's just focus on that. Everything's fine.
And I read something really good is businesses are going to have to go back to thinking about what it was like to be in startup, the lean and mean and those types of things of like, because we're so used to having everything we want now. So really evaluating and pause. And so creating that intentionality is super important right now of what do you want to create? How are you going to get there? And knowing exactly what your family needs from the business and then creating from that standpoint rather than I'm going to feed everybody. I'm going to help everybody. I'm going to outwardly. We have to go more inwardly and look, what do we need? And then what kind of impact can we make?
Yes, I think that's great advice. Put yourself back into startup mode. I mean, and coming from you, who's been in business for what was it, 34 years?
19 years.
19 years.
34 years in the county.
I take that to heart a lot because, I'm in my 4th year in business right now. And, I'm still in startup mode and I've never been through a recession and, all of these things. But so I really appreciate that perspective. And thank you for that. Yes. Awesome. Well, I really enjoyed this conversation, Connie. Thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Yes. Thank you, Emily. This was awesome. And 4 years being an expert, having that strength to be an expert and come and doing these, this is amazing for you. Thank you.
Yes. And in another couple of years, I can probably use your services once I've, got that cash flow piece.
I really love ghostwriting. Cool. I use a copywriter myself for that helps kind of bridges all that stuff together and have for a couple of years, because sometimes we have an idea, but like mine is numbers, language is not, writing is not. And
Right.
so that's a great combination of the two.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. A great copywriter is a thing to have. I use a copywriter, like, that's a whole different beast, but yes, you're absolutely right. It's a great collaborative process, I think. Yeah. And I really like that I can work with an expert like yourself and pull those ideas out. And, it's nice. It's the distance more than anything, I think, that makes it easier for me to create that for you. So,
love that. So, maybe there'll be a book in my future.
Yay, wonderful. I think you should. From everything you said, that is a great next move. Very cool. So tell us where we can learn more about you.
Sure. We've, of course, now you say that and I go blank. It's moneyactiontips.com.
Yes.
MoneyActionTips.com. MoneyActionTips.com. There's a free report that's like the first 3 steps of the cash handling system. I have a profit zine or an e-zine that I email out several times a month. And then I also have time. I really want clients or people to have their first steps. We didn't talk a lot about the how-to steps, but if anyone's questioning it or like, what's a cash handling system? There's a link there to schedule a 30-minute free call to just answer any questions, because I want people to have enough experience or education behind them to take their next steps. Whether it's with me or with somebody else, we want to make sure they're going in the right direction.
Awesome. And I'll put those links into the comments once this video is processed and live and whatever, recorded, the pre-recording, so everyone can see it. So awesome. Thank you so much, Connie. I appreciate it.
Thank you.